We've been talking about research and the questions that you should ask before you begin your research. Now let's talk a little about data collection and some of the types of data that we collect and how to know when your information is actually legitimate or not. So let's start by acknowledging that there are many ways to collect data. We find all kinds of ways. I think the one most college students tend to prefer is to, as I like to call, rip and read from the internet. Well, in the business world, we can't do that. We have to find other ways. Now, there's a thing called univariate, which is the simplest way to collect. Univariate means there's only one variable or element to count. So you're looking at one thing and you're trying to get information for one element. So univariate is primarily what we look at. There's also bivariate or two variables and multivariate or multiple elements. These are usually shown by using charts or graphs. But as a general rule, when we're looking at some pretty basic StratCom research, we're looking at univariate. And univariate is most often shown by using a mean, median, and or mode. This is the only place where I want to talk math to you all, folks. Don't panic. Okay, mean, median, and mode. Very, very simple. Everybody take a stop, take a breath. It's going to be okay. It is not bad math. Okay, you can use a calculator on this. I promise it's easy. Mean, the average. You add all the scores together and divide by the number of respondents. If you have 20 respondents and you've got a number of scores that they've all given. Let's say you have asked people on a scale of 1 to 10 to rate your client, and they give you those scores, then you add them together and divide by 20 because that's how many people responded, and that gives you the mean. That's the average score. So you can tell in a heartbeat, do you have, if let's say it's between 1 and 10 being the highest, and your score comes back as a 5, then your client has kind of an reputation. So it's a very quick snapshot. Easy, easy, easy to figure out here. Then there's the median. Median is the dead center of the responses. This is where you rearrange all your numbers into proper numerical order. And again, if you're saying rate on a scale of 1 to 10, how many did ones, how many did 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Put them in a line. And if you have 20 people, you count to 10, and the number that is at the number 10 in proper numerical order, that's the center. So that's the dead center of the responses. Finally, there's the mode. The mode is the most popular score. It's the one that appears most often. So if you again have 20 people responding and the most popular number that you see is 7, then 7 is the mode. Really easy. Tells you, you're not doing bad, but you're not doing as well as you could be. So mean, median, and mode. Very, very simple math. I even hesitate to use the word math because really it's just adding together or lining up the numbers and counting. So let's go beyond mean, median, and mode. Let's talk about the types of data. There are several types of data. Different types that we use in collecting information for StratCom. The first one is the easiest, nominal data. It is the lowest form, the absolutely easiest form of data that we collect. Nominal data just means simple counting. You had 50 people at an event. Your nominal data is 50 people attended. See? Really easy. Simply counts the answers in no specific order of importance, or it simply counts the number of people at an event. Most often, it's used in reporting frequency and the percentage of a response, or how many people attended. So nominal is your friend. We use it a lot, and it's very, very easy because it's just counting how many responses, how many people. Going just a little bit more advanced is ordinal data. And ordinal data provides an order of attributes or characteristics by ranking the responses from smallest to greatest. We have a thing called a Likert scale. I will have an example for you here in just a moment. And that is where we most often see ordinal data, from one end of a scale to another end of a scale. Ordinal data gives us information in an ordered sequence, and it's very easy for us to see either people being very happy or very frustrated or unhappy with a question or a situation. Now, ordinal scales report the number of respondents and ranks the order and ranks the importance of the responses. Here I said ranking Likert responses. Here is a Likert scale. You've all seen them. You've probably just never known they were called this. It's where you start and it says you strongly agree, agree, there's a neutral position, you disagree, or you strongly disagree. This can be flipped. It could start with strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree, depending on how this question is worded as to which side we start with here. But a Likert is we just can count and we can see that if people agree or strongly agree versus the number of people who disagree or strongly disagree, and it gives us a lot of information about our organization, our client, our project, whatever it is we're looking at. Likert scales are the easiest thing for us to use, and we use them a lot in StratComm because they're easy for people to quickly fill out and easy for us to look at and say, oh, 57% either agreed or strongly agreed with question 1, 20% either disagreed or strongly disagreed with question 1, and the rest were neutral. They didn't care one way or the other. The only time you can really get into a problem with this is when the majority is at the neutral position as opposed to either the agree or disagree. There's also a thing called interval data. And interval data is a linear scale that distinguishes the distance between all integers or elements of a question. This can be where data may be presented as frequencies or percentages of mean scores. So if you say that 57% of the responses were positive, 20% were negative, then presenting that in that way might be shown as a percentage so that it would be an interval data rather than an ordinal. I know it sounds confusing. As we work on it, I think you'll get to understand it a little better. If you say it was 507 to 386 against question 1, or 88.7% agreed with question 3, then you're looking at interval data. And it just is real easy for people to understand what you're saying. Now, something that is also, again, very easy but tends to confuse people is ratio data. And ratio data, most of us can grasp the concept very quickly. It's just sometimes some of the ratios are given to us in such a way that we kind of go, what? So let's look at it. Ratio data is the highest level of measurement, not frequently found in StratComm research, because we in StratComm research, again, we're very much for the humans. We're very much on that squishy side of things. And we want to make sure that people clearly understand what it is we're saying. Now, ratio data is comparisons between two different but similar objects, and the ratio is the difference in between them. So you're not looking at apples and apples, you're looking at apples and tangerines, or squashes and pineapples. So you're not always looking at things that are exactly the same. They're similar sometimes in some way, shape, or form. Again, in StratComm, we prefer to look at apples to apples, oranges to oranges, pineapples to pineapples. We like to make sure that we're trying to be consistent. A ratio would be compare the weight of a man weighing 200 pounds and a man weighing 100 pounds, and the ratio is 2 to 1. most of us don't like getting into things that are beyond that. There are 5/8 splits and other ratio numbers that are very common that are a little bit more confusing. So if you understand ratio data is comparing differences of things that are similar but not quite alike, then I think that will help you. Again, we don't use that much. Use this that much in StratCom. All in all, by the way, it is not uncommon to combine the different types. We see that often. You can do a nominal data count, but you may want to take some of that same information, show it in a weighted fashion for a form of ratio data, or you may want to show it as an ordinal form of data. You might want to weight the data so that it can emphasize the contribution or the answer. By the way, by weighting the data, I mean that you're actually putting numbers to the responses and that you're giving one type of response more weight or more emphasis than you are another type. This is very complex, and we can talk about this in person later, which we will do. But I want you to at least be exposed to it through this PowerPoint. More commonly in scientific research, especially, there is a thing called gamma ray research, which is really complex. It's a way of weighting the data to show how strong a separation can appear or how close people actually are in something. And you'll hear people bandy the term about. I will tell you that in StratCom, this is kind of one of those things to where, okay, we've heard the term, we understand that it's out there and it's very scientific, and we don't do it. We've just heard the term. It's nice. Somebody can really get specific on something. But as a general rule, we're not that into gamma ray research in StratCom. You know, we always like to make sure that there's a final report, and so when we combine types, we have to explain that we are using our information not as it is always used, but that how we've made the connections, how we have taken some information and maybe switched it from a nominal to a ratio data, and especially if it's almost never used this way, we need to explain why we did it this way in the final report. By the way, there is always, always, always a final report when we conduct research. And if I haven't said it yet, folks, we conduct research. We do not do research. We conduct research. So anytime we are conducting research, there will always be a final report of some kind that we must do and that we must explain everything that we've done, how we did it, what we found, all the elements that go in. We cannot leave anything out. Everything in a final report is in excruciating detail. So in case somebody wants to come back and try to replicate what we've done later on, they can. So I know that these 3 PowerPoints have been a lot of information, and we will be spending time over the next week making sure that we go over it so that you understand it a little better. I just wanted to expose you to a lot of this information early on before we jump into it whole hog next week.